Josh, go ahead.
I think that you can't have a democracy without a basic income. If people don't have the time to participate in democracy, then it can't be a democracy. And we've got a lot of people who are busy all the time and don't have time to stay up to date with news and get engaged. And yeah, that's my thought.
I actually, I've once thought we could frame a basic income, call it the voting wage, right? It's the wage you get for doing your job and being a part of a democracy and voting, and then I don't know, you don't actually have to vote, but you have to show up, right? Whatever to get it. But there's danger with that, but I think that's a similar idea. I got the idea because there was some right winger on Facebook posted a meme that said there's those who work for a living and those who vote for a living. And I figured, well, if that's the thing that they hate, vote for a living. You've got yourself an idea there, guys, And so that being what you're being paid for is, this ties in with Carl Widerquist, says about, basic income as a sort of political right, that you get it for respecting the property system and for respecting the laws. So I'm not going out and chopping down trees in the national park and building myself a little hut because that's not my property. So I've submitted to this property system, and that sort of robbed me of a livelihood in one sense. It's robbed me of the right to take my sustenance directly from nature. So what's my compensation for that? And so this idea of basic income as a political right, I think, is quite good. And this is what Greg is saying, is that they're keeping us busy with work so that we don't, change society and we don't have a revolution. And I think there's something to that. I think the basic income has huge radical potential once you free people up. Michael.
Yes, I mean, one of the crazy things though is that what happens to the money that's paid as a basic income is it flows straight up to the rich. So it flows up much, much faster than it ever trickles down, because once it gets to the rich in terms of profits and senior executive salaries, the money gets taken out of the real economy and it gets invested into the financial economy and boosts up, asset prices and so on. And it never, hardly ever goes back down once it's there, because the rich don't liquidate assets to buy more assets or to spend their lifestyle. They'll spend that out of a proportion of their income. But once their income goes out of the real economy, it's gone. And so the really strange thing is, the more money that the community has in its hands, the richer the rich will become. And we shouldn't worry about that, so long as everybody, they're not using their power politically, right? So we have to get their money out of the political process. And Andrew Yang has talked about having, the democracy dollars and things like that. So to your point, Austin, if people are then fully engaged in the political process, then you let the other side of the equation go, and it is what it is, so long as the government is looking after the commons, making sure that, business is not destroying our common good, and that, frauds are not being perpetrated.
Or we can tax them like crazy, right? So that the money flows.
It can flow around. It doesn't need to tax them like crazy. It just needs to be taxed enough that it keeps going round and round and round. And
that's the idea.
Yes,
So you can imagine the economy a bit like an electrical circuit, right?
Yeah.
So you want to put money in like a positive charge
Absolutely.
somewhere, and you need a negative charge somewhere so that it flows out, and as it goes, it turns the machine, right? And so whether it's flowing out at the moment, what we mostly do is we put the money in at the top, and then it gets sucked. So it all stays in the financial system. So what have they done in the US since the pandemic started? They've printed $4 trillion or something and thrown it at the financial sector. And the hope that one of those people will invest in a company that employs people, which automation makes less and less likely. But let's assume that there is a basic income and that the money then flows up to the Jeff Bezos of the world. In a world with a basic income, his investment patterns are also going to be different. He's going to invest in stuff, in actual consumer goods. So at the moment, Apple makes actual stuff, right? But when they get a tax break or they get cheap money from the Fed, you know what they do? They buy Apple stock. They do stock buybacks and they jack up their own asset prices because they don't believe that there's anyone out there who's going to buy another device that they could make. right? They don't think that there's a consumer market. The most profitable thing for them to do is this company which makes real stuff, right? And then there's other sectors of the economy which are purely business services or just financial sector sort of shell games, right? And what they believe is that the best return they're going to get is to stay within the financial sector, because the only people with money are other people in the financial sector, right? Whereas if consumers had money, their behavior would be different. So yeah, they might get all the money, but consumers would get stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? We would get the products and goods and services,
Yeah.
and that's what they would be making money for. And I think it's also probably, my personal opinion is that equality is just a primary good, that a more equal society is better than a less equal society, and I don't need to justify that. That's just, equality is good, like the sun is hot, right? It's just a self-evident truth to me, right? Like all men are created equal or whatever, or all people. And so I would say that then you tax people at the top quite heavily, and what they get is the prestige of success and some increased spending power, but they don't get to amass these Bezos scale ridiculous fortunes that some people do.